Ghosts in the classical world often appeared in the form of vapor or smoke, but at other times they were described as being substantial, appearing as they had been at the time of death, complete with the wounds that killed them. Spirits of the dead appear in literature as early as Homer's Odyssey, which features a journey to the underworld and the hero encountering the ghosts of the dead, as well as the Old Testament, in which the Witch of Endor calls the spirit of the prophet Samuel. The play Mostellaria by the Roman playwright Plautus is the earliest known work to feature a haunted dwelling, and is sometimes translated as the haunted house. Another early account of a haunted place comes from an account by Pliny the Younger, c. 50 AD. Pliny describes the haunting of a house in Athens by a ghost bound in chains, an archetype that would become familiar in later literature. Ghosts often appeared in the tragedies of the Roman writer Seneca, who would later influence the revival of tragedy on the Renaissance stage, particularly Thomas Kyd and Shakespeare. The 1001 Nights, sometimes known as Arabian Nights, contains a number of ghost stories often involving jinn, also spelled as jinn, ghouls and corpses. 13. In particular, the tale of Ali the Cairene and the haunted house in Baghdad revolves around a house haunted by jinns. Other medieval Arabic literature, such as the Encyclopedia of the Brethren of Purity, also contain ghost stories. In the mid-16th century, the works of Seneca were rediscovered by Italian humanists, and they became the models for the revival of tragedy. Seneca's influence is particularly evident in Thomas Kyd's The Spanish Tragedy and Shakespeare's Hamlet, both of which share a revenge theme, a corpse-strewn climax, and ghosts among the cast. The ghosts in Richard III also resemble the Senecan model, while the ghost in Hamlet plays a more complex role. The shade of Hamlet's murdered father in Hamlet has become one of the more recognizable ghosts in English literature. In another of Shakespeare's works, Macbeth, the murdered Banquo returns as a ghost to the dismay of the title character. In English Renaissance theater, ghosts were often depicted in the garb of the living and even in armor. Armor, being out of date by the time of the Renaissance, gave the stage ghost a sense of antiquity. The sheeted ghost began to gain ground on stage in the 1800s because an armored ghost had to be moved about by complicated pulley systems or lifts, and eventually became cliched stage elements and objects of ridicule. Anne Jones and Peter Stallybrass in Renaissance Clothing and the Materials of Memory point out, in fact, it is as laughter increasingly threatens the ghost that he starts to be staged not in armor but in some form of spirit drapery. An interesting observation by Jones and Stallybrass is that, at the historical point at which ghosts themselves become increasingly implausible, at least to an educated elite, to believe in them at all, it seems to be necessary to assert their immateriality, their invisibility. The drapery of ghosts must now indeed be as spiritual as the ghosts themselves. This is a striking departure both from the ghosts of the Renaissance stage and from the Greek and Roman theatrical ghosts upon which that stage drew. The most prominent feature of Renaissance ghosts is precisely their gross materiality. They appear to us conspicuously clothed border ballads. Ghosts figured prominently in traditional British ballads of the 16th and 17th centuries, particularly the border ballads of the turbulent border country between England and Scotland. Ballads of this type include The Unquiet Grave, The Wife of Usher's Well, and Sweet William's Ghost, which feature the recurring theme of returning dead lovers or children. In the ballad King Henry, a particularly ravenous ghost devours the king's horse and hounds before forcing the king into bed. The king then awakens to find the ghost transformed into a beautiful woman. The Flying Dutchman was a ghost ship that